One of the most common mistakes people make when trying to create attraction or emotional connection is assuming that a woman wants to hear what she hears from everyone else. And perhaps no phrase illustrates this better than the simple statement, "You're beautiful now." Before we go any further, let me be clear. There is nothing inherently wrong with telling a woman she is beautiful. Most women appreciate genuine compliments. The problem is not the compliment itself. The problem is what happens when that compliment becomes the entire message. Think about it. If a woman is attractive, chances are she has heard some version of that statement countless times throughout her life. She has heard it from strangers, acquaintances, social media followers, coworkers, former partners, and people who barely know her. Over time, even sincere praise can become predictable. It begins to blend into the background. No longer communicates anything unique about the person saying it, nor does it make her feel uniquely understood. This reveals something important about human psychology. People do not simply want to be admired. They want to be known. There is a profound difference between noticing someone's appearance and recognizing their individuality. One requires eyesight, the other requires attention. When a man says, "You're beautiful," he is often describing what he sees. But what many women are emotionally responding to is whether someone can see beyond what is immediately visible. They are asking, consciously or unconsciously, "Do you notice who I am, or are you only reacting to how I look?" This is where many interactions lose depth. Physical beauty may attract attention, but attention alone does not create emotional significance. Attention is easy to get. Significance is much harder to achieve. Female psychology, like human psychology in general, is deeply influenced by the need to feel understood. When a woman feels that someone appreciates aspects of her that are not obvious to everyone else, a different emotional response begins to emerge. She feels seen rather than observed. And that distinction matters more than most people realize. To be seen is to have your inner world acknowledged. It is the difference between someone noticing your smile and someone noticing how you use that smile to make other people feel comfortable. It is the difference between someone admiring your confidence and someone recognizing the courage it took to build that confidence after difficult experiences. One remains on the surface, the other reaches beneath it. What makes certain compliments unforgettable is not their creativity, is their accuracy. People often assume that attraction grows through impressive words. In reality, attraction often grows through precise observation. When someone reflects back a part of us that we value but rarely hear acknowledged, we experience a feeling of connection. We feel recognized. Philosophically speaking, every human being carries a private self and a public self. The public self is what the world sees. The private self contains our struggles, values, intentions, dreams, and insecurities. Most interactions occur at the level of the public self. But meaningful relationships develop when someone begins to understand the private self. This is why appearance-based compliments have limitations. They address something that is already visible. They do not necessarily communicate understanding. They do not necessarily communicate effort. They certainly do not guarantee emotional closeness. A woman may appreciate hearing that she is beautiful, but she is far more likely to remember the person who noticed something meaningful about her character, her perspective, her resilience, or the unique way she affects the people around her. Because ultimately, what leaves a lasting impression is not the feeling of being evaluated, it is the feeling of being understood. And that is where many people get attraction backwards. They focus on saying what sounds flattering rather than saying what feels true. They chase approval instead of connection. They try to stand out through bigger compliments when what actually creates impact is deeper awareness. The irony is that the more attention you pay to who someone is, the less you need exaggerated language. Genuine recognition carries its own emotional weight. It resonates, it is rare. In a world where people are constantly being looked at, the greatest gift is to be truly seen, and that is the thought worth carrying forward. Beauty may capture someone's eyes for a moment, but understanding captures something far more powerful, their trust, their attention, and ultimately their heart. Once you begin to understand that being seen is more powerful than simply being admired, another important truth comes into focus. Women do not remember every compliment they receive. They remember how certain people made them feel. This is a distinction that many people underestimate. We often think communication is primarily about words. We focus on finding the perfect phrase, the clever line, or the most flattering compliment. But human beings are emotional creatures before they are analytical ones. Long after specific words have faded from memory, the emotional experience attached to those words often remains. Think about your own life for a moment. There are probably conversations you can barely recall, yet you still remember how someone made you feel during them. You remember the person who made you feel respected. You remember the person who made you feel safe. You remember the person who made you feel appreciated at a time when you needed it most. The same principle applies to attraction and emotional connection. When a woman hears, "You're beautiful," she may appreciate it. But appreciation and emotional impact are not always the same thing. Appreciation is often immediate. Emotional impact is lasting. One creates a pleasant moment, the other creates a meaningful memory. Psychologically, people form deeper attachments to experiences that reinforce their sense of identity. In other words, compliments become powerful when they validate something a person values about themselves. This is why remarks about character, effort, intelligence, emotional strength, or unique qualities often leave a stronger impression than comments about appearance alone. Imagine the difference between hearing, "You're beautiful," and hearing, "I admire how calm you remain when everyone else is stressed." The first statement describes a visible trait. The second acknowledges a personal quality that reflects character. One notices. The other understands. And understanding is one of the most emotionally attractive experiences a person can have. Many women spend a significant portion of their lives being evaluated based on appearance. Whether consciously or unconsciously, become accustomed to receiving feedback about how they look. What often feels rarer and therefore more meaningful is when someone notices how they think, how they care for others, how they handle challenges, or how they influence the people around them. This is where emotional resonance begins. Emotional resonance occurs when words touch something deeper than the surface. It happens when a compliment reflects an internal reality that the person recognizes within themselves. Suddenly, the conversation is no longer about external approval. It becomes about personal recognition. There is also an important philosophical element to this. Every human being wants evidence that they matter beyond what they can display to the world. We want to believe that our value is connected to who we are, not merely to what others can observe. This desire is especially relevant in relationships. Genuine connection is built on the feeling that someone appreciates our essence, not just our presentation. When a woman feels that a man values her thoughts, her perspective, her emotional depth, or her unique way of seeing the world, she often experiences something much more powerful than attraction. She experiences emotional safety. Emotional safety is frequently misunderstood. It does not mean comfort in the simplistic sense. It means feeling free to be authentic without fear of being reduced to a single characteristic. It means feeling that someone is interested in understanding the whole person rather than selecting a few appealing traits and ignoring everything else. This is why certain phrases carry extraordinary weight. Statements like, "I love how passionate you become when you talk about something important to you," or "You make people feel comfortable without even trying," communicate attention. They reveal presence. They show that the speaker is observing more than appearances. And perhaps most importantly, communicate sincerity. People can often sense when a compliment is generic. They can feel when words are being used merely to create an impression. But specific observations are difficult to fake. They signal genuine interest. They demonstrate that someone has taken the time to notice details that others may overlook. That is what transforms communication from flattery into connection. The goal is not to memorize better compliments. The goal is to develop deeper awareness, because when awareness deepens, your words naturally become more meaningful. The people we remember most are rarely the ones who praised us the loudest. They are the ones who understood us the clearest, and that is worth reflecting on. If you want your words to matter, stop focusing on what sounds impressive and start focusing on what feels true. The deepest connections are built not through admiration alone, but through the rare and powerful gift of making another person feel genuinely understood. Once we understand that emotional impact comes not from praise itself, but from making someone feel genuinely understood, we can begin to explore what that looks like in practice. This is where the conversation shifts from theory to application. The question is no longer whether appearance-based compliments are limited. The question becomes, what kinds of words actually create a deeper emotional response? What is fascinating about female psychology, and human psychology more broadly, is people are often most affected by compliments that acknowledge qualities they have consciously worked to develop. Physical appearance can certainly be appreciated, but character, emotional strength, wisdom, kindness, resilience, and presence are earned. When someone recognizes those qualities, it feels different because it validates effort, not just circumstance. Consider a phrase like, "I admire the way you think." At first glance, it seems simple, yet psychologically, it reaches much deeper than a comment about appearance. Why? Because it acknowledges her perspective. It suggests that her ideas, her reasoning, and her way of understanding the world have value. For many women, being appreciated intellectually creates a sense of respect, and respect is one of the foundations of meaningful attraction. Another powerful alternative is, "I feel calm around you." Notice what makes this statement unique. It is not describing her appearance. It is describing her impact. It communicates that her presence changes the emotional atmosphere around you. Human beings naturally want to feel significant, and one of the strongest ways to communicate significance is to express how someone positively affects your emotional experience. In many ways, this is more intimate than saying someone is beautiful. Beauty describes what someone is. Impact describes what they do. A phrase such as, "You have a way of making people feel comfortable," works for the same reason. Highlights emotional intelligence and social awareness. It tells her that you are paying attention not only to her but also to the effect she has on others. That level of observation signals genuine interest rather than automatic attraction. Then there is a compliment that many people overlook entirely. "I respect how strong you've become." What makes this powerful is that it acknowledges a journey. Strength rarely appears without challenges. Growth rarely exists without struggle. When you recognize someone's strength, you are indirectly recognizing the experiences that shaped them. You are communicating that you see more than the final result. You appreciate the process behind it. This touches on a deeper philosophical truth. Every person carries invisible stories. Most of those stories remain hidden from the outside world. People often long for those stories to be recognized, even if only indirectly. Compliments that acknowledge resilience, courage, or personal growth often resonate because they honor that unseen reality. Another phrase that can have remarkable emotional weight is, "I love how passionate you are about the things that matter to you." Passion reveals values. Values reveal identity. When you appreciate someone's passions, you are appreciating something central to who they are. You are moving beyond surface-level attraction and engaging with their deeper sense of self. The same principle applies to saying, "You inspire me." This statement carries emotional significance because it reverses the typical dynamic. Instead of evaluating her, you are learning from her. Instead of placing yourself in the position of judge, you place yourself in the position of student. That humility creates authenticity. Authenticity is often far more attractive than admiration alone. Perhaps one of the most meaningful phrases is simply, "I appreciate the way you see the world." Why does this matter? Because every individual experiences reality through a unique lens. To appreciate someone's perspective is to acknowledge their individuality. It is to say that their inner world has value. Few things make people feel more deeply understood than knowing their thoughts and perceptions are genuinely respected. What connects all of these examples is not the wording itself. The specific phrase matters far less than the principle behind it. Each one recognizes something deeper than appearance. Each one reflects attention. Each one communicates that the speaker has taken the time to observe qualities that cannot be captured in a photograph. And that is precisely why these compliments create emotional resonance. They satisfy a fundamental human desire, the desire to be appreciated for who we are rather than merely how we appear. When people feel appreciated for their character, their values, their efforts, and their unique qualities, they often experience a deeper form of validation. Not validation that boosts the ego for a moment, but validation that strengthens connection. Ultimately, the most powerful words are not the most flattering. They are the most truthful. They emerge from genuine observation, sincere curiosity, and real appreciation. So as you move forward, challenge yourself to look beyond appearances. Pay attention to what makes someone unique. Notice the qualities that others overlook, because the compliments people remember for years are rarely about how they looked. They are about the moment someone finally recognized who they truly were. As we bring these ideas together, we arrive at what may be the most important insight of all. The secret behind every memorable compliment is not eloquence, charm, or confidence. It is the ability to make another person feel truly seen. Throughout this discussion, we have explored why physical compliments often have limited emotional impact, why emotional memory is more powerful than verbal praise, and why certain observations resonate far more deeply than comments about appearance. But beneath all of these ideas lies a single principle. People are moved by recognition. Not recognition in the public sense, not applause, status, or attention. The kind of recognition that occurs when another human being notices something meaningful about us and reflects it back with sincerity. This is particularly important because most people spend their lives being partially seen. The world tends to notice what is easiest to observe, notices appearance, achievements, social status, and outward behavior. But human beings are infinitely more complex than the image they present. Beneath every visible trait is an invisible world of experiences, hopes, fears, values, disappointments, and dreams. What many women, and indeed many people, are searching for is someone who is willing to look beyond the obvious. Think about how rare that has become. We live in a culture that encourages quick judgments and surface-level impressions. People often form opinions within seconds. They decide who someone is based on appearance, social media profiles, or a handful of interactions. Meaningful connection operates according to a completely different set of rules. It requires curiosity. It requires attention. Most importantly, it requires presence. Presence is one of the most underestimated qualities in human communication. When you are fully present with someone, you begin to notice details that others miss. You notice the enthusiasm in their voice when they discuss something meaningful. You notice the quiet confidence behind their actions. You notice the kindness they extend when no one is watching. You notice the resilience hidden beneath their composure. And those observations become powerful because they reveal that your attention is genuine. This is where many people misunderstand attraction. They believe attraction is created by saying impressive things. In reality, attraction often grows from noticing impressive things. The difference is subtle but profound. One approach focuses on performing. The other focuses on perceiving. When your goal is to impress, your attention remains centered on yourself. You become concerned with delivering the perfect line, creating the perfect image, or generating the perfect reaction. But when your goal is to understand, your attention shifts entirely toward the other person. That shift changes everything. People can feel the difference. A woman can usually sense whether a compliment is designed primarily to win approval or whether it emerges from genuine observation. One feels transactional, the other feels authentic. And authenticity has a unique emotional power because it creates trust. Trust develops when people believe they can reveal more of themselves without being misunderstood. Grows when they feel appreciated for qualities that extend beyond appearance or achievement. Deepens when they realize that someone values not only their strengths but also their humanity. Philosophically, this touches on one of the deepest human needs, the desire to be known. Every person carries an internal question, whether they articulate it or not. The question is simple. If people truly knew who I am, would they still value me? When someone recognizes our character, our efforts, our values, or our unique way of seeing the world, they help answer that question. They communicate that our worth extends beyond what is immediately visible. That is why being seen feels so powerful. It is not merely flattering, it is affirming. It tells us that we are more than our appearance, more than our successes, more than the roles we play for others. It reminds us that our inner world matters. And this is ultimately why the most memorable compliments are never really about the words themselves. The exact phrase is secondary. What matters is the awareness behind it. You do not need extraordinary language to create extraordinary connection. You do not need rehearsed lines or perfectly crafted statements. What you need is the willingness to pay attention, to listen carefully, to observe sincerely, to appreciate qualities that others overlook. Because when you do that, your words naturally carry weight. People remember those moments. They remember the person who noticed their strength when they doubted themselves. They remember the person who valued their thoughts instead of only their appearance. They remember the person who recognized something important about them that the rest of the world seemed to miss. Perhaps that is the final lesson worth carrying with you. The most powerful compliment is not the one that makes someone feel admired. It is the one that makes them feel understood. When you learn to see people deeply, your words stop being compliments and start becoming connections. Genuine connection will always be remembered long after beauty, charm, and clever words have faded from memory.